because it's not a burden.
Right.
There are certainly burdens throughout the day, but the overall experience of having a large family is, it's, 80% joy and 20% work, so that's.
In the Gospels, Jesus says, if you're fasting, don't put ashes on your face like the hypocritical Pharisees do, but clean yourself up and smile and go to your parties and do your normal things and fast.
Yeah.
Right. So I think,
I think about that all the time.
You have to deal with suffering.
Cover the dark circles, put on your heels, get out the door,
Me too.
Welcome to the Conor Gallagher Show. We explore topics of substance from raising kids to spiritual warfare. This isn't just a show, at least for me. It's an ongoing journey of our second conversion. Life is short and eternity is really, really long, and there's no time to waste on trivialities. Let's dive into the essence of what truly matters, and let's do so right now.
16 of anything is a lot. What's the
how
Dunbar
many-
number? I don't even know. It's like 150 or something, right? Of just people you can know or keep in mind.
So we're over a 10th already.
Right, exactly.
How many of their social security numbers do you know by memory?
Oh, no, not many.
You did the first
Like
5
maybe
or 6
3.
or-
Wow.
3. You're being generous, but yeah.
Yeah, I got 3 and I don't even know the first digit of the social security number. Not even close.
Yeah. I probably know half their birthdays.
Okay.
I get lost.
So is it the first half or is it just
No,
it's
your
random.
favorite half? Got
It's
it.
little things that like stick out for some reason.
Yeah, like 2 days from his birthday, he can remember them.
Yeah, that's easy.
Like the twins
Yeah.
is super easy to remember because they're born on October 14th, which of course is the day that the Norman conquest happened.
Oh, of course.
And that's essentially when the French invaded England and the whole New England reign began under William the Conqueror.
So you didn't want to name them William and Norman?
No, I did not.
You didn't push for that?
Luke, Dominic, Chesterton, Gallagher. And it's cool because I was reading Winston Churchill's History of England, this would have been volume 2 of the 5 or 6 or whatever it is. And I was reading about William the Conqueror's invasion into England, which is great. I mean, it's just a little piece of water to cross. It's not that big of a deal. But they came over and then basically, that's why like the whole English monarchy originally was French. And then they changed their names and then became basically German. But it's never really been English, even though they pretend it's English. But I'm reading about it, and it was about October 14th, and it was actually October 14th in the hospital. So while she's getting ready to give birth to twins, I'm like, this is October 14th.
It was supposed to be the 13th, though. So pregnant with twins, they're over 38 weeks. They want to induce you early because problems can arise. And so I was like, okay, we can do that. But it was the year of the 100th anniversary of the Fatima apparitions, and I wanted October 13th. So we squeezed out a few days past what they really wanted because I really wanted that anniversary date for their birthday. If you're going to pick it, right? Pick it. And those little stinkers were born at 1 a.m. on the 14th.
Oh. Brutal.
Missed it by an hour.
Yeah, missed it by an hour. So it was brutal.
That was a crazy experience, seeing twins born, because it was like, I felt like an entire hospital of doctors were in the room. They take you into another room.
They take you into the OR, so operating room, because they want to be able to get babies out quick if they need to. So.
And then,
but you knew that ahead of time.
Yeah,
right?
I did. I don't know. I mean, I told him, but it doesn't mean like.
Right.
You walk in, and it's just a whole different. I mean, I had seen a bunch of births.
Because they're 7 and 8?
11 and 12.
Oh, sorry, 11 and 12.
Yeah,
Oh,
11
gotcha.
and
So
12,
you had 10 under your belt already?
Yeah.
And, there was anesthesiologist,
So there was,
nurse.
Yeah,
the
nurse
delivery doctor.
anesthetist, the delivery doctor. Each baby had a baby doctor, baby nurse in the room. I mean, it was serious.
I think there was like
business.
12 people in that
There
room,
were
other
a
than
lot.
us.
Yeah,
it was weird. It was I'm like,
crazy.
what's going on? I felt like she was getting a head transplant or something. I mean, it was, and then the second
You had a lot of head transplants, have you?
Yeah, the
There'd
last
be
one I
a-
had,
there'd be a
there
lot
were
of
about
doctors
the
in
same
that
number of
situation.
doctors.
It was just, I felt like this is really intense,
Right.
And then the second one came out foot first.
Breech. He was a breech birth baby.
And again, I had seen at that point then 11
Right.
births. And then when a foot comes out, it really registers, this is not supposed to happen like this.
Right.
This is not the way it's supposed to go. And then, I always had this joke with the doctor who's delivered a bunch of those babies. How many now has Dr. Meek done? Like 12 or 13 or something.
So the first 3 were not born here. So that would limit us to 13. And I think he didn't. And then the 4th, no, okay, so we're down to 12. He's maybe done 11 of the deliveries. I think one another doctor was on. And
so we got to, oh, you had the yelling doctor.
Oh, yeah, that was pretty bad.
So it was in his practice, I think.
Yeah, it was a different practice. Yeah. But yeah, that was interesting.
Tell about the yelling doctor. I think it's funny.
It wasn't funny. It was kind of like.
Look, if they get a name, right? It's not a great name.
No, I mean, she was into it way more than I was. Like, she was like, push! And I'm like,
what's going on here?
Like, we're good.
What number was this for you?
That was number 4. That was baby number 4. Yeah, that was number 4.
But I mean, she's not a rookie.
Right. What if she had been number 1? Like, that would have been really intriguing.
Yeah.
Like, that's just how it is, right?
Yeah.
Because that has happened for a number of women.
Like, who just see her. Like, that's all they get.
She's the doctor, not the
That's
yelling
what you
doctor.
get.
I was looking at her face knowing like she's thinking, stop yelling at me. And I'm trying not to laugh. It was messed up, man. It was messed up. Yeah.
But it wasn't for any particular reason. This was just her bedside manner.
It's just her. It's just the way she did things. Then she delivered the baby, fixed her hair in the mirror, and left. Never saw her again. She's all about the encouragement beforehand, and like afterwards, she's like, "It's on you, lady. Like, I'm out of here." So.
And then the other doctor, who's done the 11 birth, Dr. Meek, and he is the most meek person. It's a perfect name.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just sit there and chat. Like, we're just talking like guys. He's a huge Packers fan. And we're just talking up a storm because we're buddies at this point, And then, but then the nurses are like, she's going to deliver any second. And Meek's like, oh, okay. It's just, he's so laid back.
Yeah. With the last baby, what were you guys talking about?
But I was going to a Packers game.
You were talking about the Packers. That's exactly what you were talking about.
He's a shareholder of the Packers.
Of course, part owner.
Yeah. So I'm like moaning. I'm just in so much pain. I'm like, oh. And he's looking at me and he's like, you got this. Like, it's going to be okay. So he and Connor are having their conversation. And I'm thinking to myself, I just want to yell, shut up already. But I'm like, hold it in. I had actually offered this birth for a very particular intention. So I'm like, okay, just a little added suffering, like hold it in. Don't say what you really want to say right now. Just deal with the little extra annoyance that's going on right now. And it worked,
Yeah, you took it like a champ.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Strong. And how many times do you want to yell that when people ask you dumb questions or say dumb things?
Yeah.
Like percentage-wise, it's got to be like 50% these days.
A lot of them are either that or they're just downright rude. Or crude, even, but I think for the most part, people are genuinely interested. It's not so much a like, you're so weird. It's, whoa, how does that even work? How's that even you must be kidding, right? You're kidding. Like, I get that where I have
Blended
to come
family.
I have to come back like 10 times. They're all yours. They're all, but you had them, right? Like, how many are adopted? How many are your husbands from another marriage? I'm like, none. They're just mine. Like, they grew in my belly. They're just, I did actually have them all, but they assume that this must be like a foster care situation where we're fostering a bunch of kids or, something like that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Do you get into the details? Does it depend on the person? Is that kind of the situation?
Yeah. Some people ask specific questions. Like, it's funny what some people are interested in knowing, moms who have a few kids, like they want to know about like laundry and dishes and like, how do you get stuff done? I think a lot of people want to tell me like, oh, my grandfather was one of 10 or, my great grandmother was one of whatever. And they had so much fun. And I get a lot of comments actually about Christmas. You must have the best Christmas at your house. Like, I think people do, it's not just a like weirdo negative thing, but I think there is also a positive connotation even from people who aren't from big families or haven't been around big families. And they get this picture of like, whoa, it must be a lot of fun at your house. My answer is, yeah, it is a lot of fun, So that's actually a really nice when I have those conversations instead of just like, oh, it must be so much work, you know. I mean, I have people who will say to me, I'd shoot myself.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
okay,
Like
cover the ears, like we're out of here.
They don't even
It's like,
complete lack of self-awareness on
Yeah,
that with
yeah.
the impact on the kids or anything.
Right.
Wow.
So,
And it's every day.
Right.
You gotta understand, like when I say this subject of saying to somebody we have 16 kids,
Which you never just offer.
you never
I
offer.
never ever
Right.
offer. And a lot of times I feel like I go out incognito because I'll just take a couple kids with me somewhere. And people will say like, oh, your baby. I'll have just like, we had just the baby this past
Yeah,
weekend.
this weekend.
We were
This
out,
was
we're
funny.
visiting our adult daughter.
Who has a baby.
And she and her husband are buying their first house. We're going to see, this first house that they're going to buy. And we go to lunch. And as we're getting out of the car, this woman parks beside me and she gets out and she's like, oh, how sweet. And she's looking at her son. She's like, I just told him, I remember those days lugging around all the gear. And it definitely, Mary's getting out of her car and she's watching this conversation from a distance. She goes, they grow up quick. I'm like, oh, yeah. And I wanted to say, I know, like this is this adult here with my granddaughter, like,
Right.
but I didn't even
had
want to
no
get
idea.
into the conversation.
That woman,
she had no idea.
That woman, because we know, like we just know because it happens all the time. Very, very nice lady. I'm not criticizing her at all.
Sure.
But she absolutely thought that this was like our first child.
I'm like, don't we look really old for our first baby? Like, isn't that a clue? Like maybe.
And if we had told her, and we didn't, but if we had said, actually,
that's our baby too.
That's our baby and that's our grandbaby.
And she's not
and-
even our
Would've been
oldest.
And she's not even our oldest. Like, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Wait, what? And that's when you get the.
And I don't want to have the conversation.
Right?
We don't want to have the conversation. We just want to go eat.
Yeah, yeah.
But if the conversation had gone on for more than a few minutes, she would have said, "Oh, is this your first baby?" Like that's what she would have said. And then that's how this happens. So it's almost daily that we have to, answer something about the kids. So you end up with little shortcut answers. But sometimes I like putting her on the spot, like to embarrass her. Like we'll go at restaurants or whatever.
And then our friend, they're friends of ours. We go out to dinner with them regularly.
Oh, I'm not saying his name. John Torres.
John Torres.
John Torres.
Oh, tell me what John
So
does.
he's got 9 kids, and his favorite thing, I think he goes out to dinner with us for this purpose. Like I don't even know if he really likes us, but when we sit down to the table and our waiter or waitress walks up, he says, "Guess how many kids there are between us? Like, just guess."
She's like, I don't do
And
that.
they're like
But-
5, 6. He's like up.
Keep going. Keep going.
Yeah, and they're 8, 10. He's like, no, up, and he's like 25. We got 25 kids between us, and they're like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
What a weird game that would be for people making that up. Right?
Yeah,
It's
but
fun.
I'm sitting there and I'm like, John's gonna do it.
I mean, I'm
again.
glad he does it.
Right? But
I'm
it's
not-
his
You
thing.
enjoy the game.
I enjoy the game, but I don't really want to do
Yeah.
that. But sometimes I will embarrass her in public. you know.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Like she doesn't like it when I ask for gluten-free water,
Yeah.
or I'll say this is way better than prison food.
Yes, he
You know?
does. They're like, how was your food? He's like, way better than prison food. And I'm like, oh, here we go again.
but that has nothing to do with the
Right.
amount of kids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but then I'll have to drop it somehow. Like, hey, look at her. How many kids do you think she's got?
But
Yeah.
the interaction with parents or other people talking about your kids, it's like a constant balancing act between you don't want them to feel uncomfortable and you don't want to be uncomfortable.
Right.
It's
Right.
like a social norms
Right.
thing at a different level that most of us get to, I think. Right.
Right. And I think I'm always cognizant when I get those questions of making sure that, because, sometimes funny little remarks would come to my mind that I would say that, I'm like, no, don't say that, because you don't want to give the impression that this is not a joyful experience. Like, and they don't know me.
Right.
So I may have this, snarky little comment that I would make in front of friends, and they know that it's just a joke, but somebody else might not know that that's a joke. And I would never want to put out there that this is a burden, So
No, you have to be a witness.
yeah, you have to kind of like rein that in and know I'm talking to a complete stranger here, and I want them to know that I love my life. I enjoy this experience.
So that would be the first answer, maybe, or the first message that you would want to get out there when people say, what is it like having 16 kids? Is
Right.
that you absolutely don't want it to come off as burden.
A burden, right? Because it's not a burden.
Right.
There are certainly burdens throughout the day, but the overall experience of having a large family is, it's 80% joy and 20% work. So that's
In the Gospels, Jesus says if you're fasting, don't put ashes on your face like the hypocritical Pharisees do, but clean yourself up and smile and go to your parties and do your normal things and fast.
yeah.
Right.
So I think,
I think about that all the time.
you have to deal with suffering.
Cover the dark circles, put on your heels, get out the door.
Me too.
But I think that percentage is pretty, that hasn't changed for you guys, I'm guessing, right? With the number of kids changing, the 80% work or 80% joy and 20% work. So.
Yeah. So I think as a young mother, it felt like, with anything, the longer you do it, the better you get at it, right? Or the more natural it becomes, even if you're not actually better at it, it becomes more second nature. So with my early kids, I definitely felt, I think, the impact of lack of sleep and a ton of like daily grind, much more so. And now just as an older parent too, and having adult children and seeing how fast that stage goes. And this is just such a short little window. At a certain point, maybe like kid number 5, I think it was probably Jude, I realized that I really didn't mind being up at night with the baby because my days were so busy with all the other kids. It was the only alone time I was going to get with that baby was when he woke me up at night to feed him. And so that's when that little piece became more of a joy and less of a burden, So different, just different things along the way where there's been little switches that have happened. And I'm like, oh, I thought that was a burden, but it's actually a benefit, lots of little things like that.
Yeah, I know you were talking about it from your perspective the other day about the most stressful time from a numbers perspective. And it was, for you, it wasn't even necessarily the number of kids. It was with the business, on the business side of things, getting the business going, the whole thing. And you thought hers would be when it was a lower amount of kids, but you guys were up in DC and kind of isolated from family. Is that your answer? If you're asked that, like most
sort
stressful?
of. So I think when my 4th one was born, I had a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old, a 1-year-old, and a newborn. And that was pretty intense, So there weren't helpers in the home. It was all of the chores, all of the grunt work throughout the day. Like that was 100% on me. And so was making this a joyful home at the same time. And so was trying to like get out of the house. Like at that point, I showed up more than once at the grocery store without my shoes on and went, oh crap, I can't even go in. Like I have to turn around and go home and get my shoes. But I was so busy running in and out, strapping kids one at a time into the car seats. Sure. And everybody's now strapped in. And it's like, okay, everyone's in, let's go. And then drive into the parking lot. And I'm like, I got to go home and get my shoes. So that was for me probably like the biggest lack of sleep and busiest time. I think even by the time my 5th one was born, I had one who was almost 5 at that time, or maybe he was 5 at that time. And he could go like, just get me diapers, bring me diapers, throw away the diaper, can you pick up the toys? And like, he could actually pick up the toys and put them where they were belong, it took me 3 times as long. When you're telling a 3-year-old pick up the toys, you have to say, now pick up that one, now pick up that one, now pick it. And, I just do it faster myself, but with the 5-year-old, I could say, pick up the toys in this room. I'll be back in 5 minutes. And he could do it, it was like sweet. So that was sort of a benchmark for me. And then probably the next real benchmark was getting maybe like a 8-year-old, like someone who could help actually hold the current baby and spend a little bit of time with the current baby while I was doing other things with toddlers and potty training and, the other things. Then getting a one that was old enough to babysit, like life-changing all of a sudden. Yeah. We couldn't go out long. We couldn't go out far. We could put little kids to bed and we could go out. And that was just huge, we were pretty limited on babysitters. There just weren't a lot of babysitters that could handle like the number of kids and the ages that we had, when they were younger. We had a couple of good ones, but
we didn't have any money to go out anyway.
And we didn't have any money. Yeah. So it was definitely a special treat, like maybe a gift from our parents for us to be able to go out to dinner or something like that. Yeah. So babysitter, then the driver. get a driver, like
That's
you're
the promised
golden.
land.
Yeah. And you have a lot of kids, they're stacked in tightly. You always have a driver. Like once that starts, it doesn't end. I've always got a high school driver at home now, and I will for a long time to come. That's really big. So,
Which means you spend a fortune on car insurance.
it means you spend a fortune on car insurance, but it means that I don't have to go in and out to the grocery store every time I need something,
Which is invaluable.
Yes,
It's awesome.
it is.
And now we go out whenever the hell we want to. I mean, it's like we got built-in babysitters.
We got built-in adult kids. We actually took our first trip. It was the first time I had been on a plane in 20 years. 20 years. We're sitting in the airport. I'm like, when's the last time I flew? I'm like, 20 years ago. And even that was not a fun trip. I had to fly from DC home because I had to get a crown on a tooth redone, So, but we went to Italy, and that we had adult kids at home, adult married children who could stay at our home and supervise. We had extra hands for them just below them, the high schoolers, to help with running kids to events. And I mean, we had a team at our house, but it was all our older kids were that team. So we get to go, and not just go, but go and relax and really enjoy.
2 weeks. You were pregnant with 16.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Monica.
So he's looking at me, and he's like, we were going to go a little bit earlier, and that didn't work out. Actually, I had a miscarriage, and so we weren't able to go at that time. But and he's looking at me. He's like, we're trying to back this trip up, but we knew we had a granddaughter on the way. And he's like, so she's going to be born in April, and now you're pregnant, and that baby's going to be born in August. You're not going to probably travel between May and August because you're going to be bigger. You're going to be miserable. It's not going to be a good day. So he's like, then you're going to be nursing a baby. So you're not going to leave that baby forever. He's like, we're 2 years away from going now. I'm like, or we could go like next week. And he's like, let's do it.
No, I'm working at my home office, and this lady is not Mrs. Spontaneous.
I am not.
She's
I am
a planner.
a planner big time.
High fact finder, as we talk about the office. And I'm working at my home office, and I get a text, and it's like Wednesday, and it says something like, maybe it's Thursday, and she says, do you want to go? The text says, do you want to go to Italy Tuesday?
It was Sunday. We went on Sunday. We left on a Sunday.
Sunday.
It was Wednesday.
It was
we left
Wednesday.
On a Sunday.
The text is, right. She remembers. It's the moral of the story for me. That's all that matters. It's Wednesday, and she says, do you want to go to Italy on Sunday? And I didn't respond like, wow, let's get together and talk. I was like, yes. Like, and then she's like, and text me back 5 minutes later, I booked the tickets. Wow. And I'm like, what is my wife possessed by an alien? Like, what happened to my wife? Because she would not do this. This is not what she would do. And I didn't care. I was just glad she was doing it. But she realized she was doing all that time. She's like, we're not going to get to go for 2 years if we don't go now. And
he's been asking me for about a decade, like, can we take a trip? Can we go for a substantial amount of time? And I'm like, no, I'm not. I don't want to go across an ocean, and I've got, all these kids at home, and there's so many things that you have to plan when you're leaving. But at this point, I'm like, well, my older kids already have healthcare power of attorney for my younger kids. So check. We've done that already, Yeah. And it just happened that they were in a stage where some of them had some breaks where they were going to be available. Certainly the married ones to sleep there overnight, and then my high schoolers were on break. And so they had some time to be extra set of hands, and it just kind of came together.
Yeah. And I think the point of all the story is that, like, it is actually easier now.
Yeah, you can't do that when you have, 6 little kids.
Not that you have to go to Italy. That's not the point. But like, we have a freedom and flexibility now better than when she had 5 little kids or whatever,
Right.
So it's better now. And so I always tell these young parents, like,
hang
in there.
Yeah.
And actually it helps them, I think. I don't know if you do it, but I do it. I'll see this mom with 6 kids, 8 and under, or something crazy. And I'll just say, you're in the worst spot. Like, the light at the end of the tunnel is like right there, but it's not going to get harder than this. So persevere. And I think they like that. They don't want to think that it's going to get worse. They like to hear that this is rock bottom and it's going up from here.
For sure. I'll never forget. I mean, I've only got 3 kids, right? 11, 9, and 4 now. So not even anywhere close to what you guys have experienced. But I'll never forget having the two oldest ones in, 3 and 1, and just thinking, like, is it ever going to get easier?
Right.
Yeah.
And always hearing like, oh, it goes so fast and this is the greatest time of your life. And I was like, do you remember what it was like having little
'Cause
kids?
the days are long.
Right. And so now like, it's like a moral responsibility. I feel if I ever see parents like who I feel like they're feeling that and going through it, I'm like, don't worry.
Right.
Same thing. Like, because I'm on the other side of it a little bit, not even anywhere close to where you guys are to a
Right.
large degree. But then I feel like I'm helping, or like you guys say, being a witness in the right direction.
Right. Right. I'll see a new mom at mass and she's like struggling with the, a new baby and trying to feed the baby and, the baby's fussy. And I'm like, you're doing amazing just being here.
Right.
Like it was.
Why don't more parents say that? Or more people? Like, isn't that what we should all say so much of the time?
Right.
Like, you're doing great just by
Keep it up.
the effort, right? It's not the results. It's the effort that you got to put in. Obviously, you do need some results too, but.
Right. But if you put the effort in, you'll get the results.
Right. To
So,
some degree.
yeah,
I mean, it's a high percentage, at least
Yeah.
chance.
Yeah.
How did it feel to book that ticket?
Scary for me because I am really, really not a last minute person. I'm also a homebody. I'm not a travel person. I don't, go play. I have a passport. The only reason I had a passport was because he was traveling with a couple of our other kids, and being the person that I am, I needed to know if there's an emergency over there,
go.
I can get on a plane and get over there to where my kids
Because
are. Like
Connor taking care of kids in some Italian hospital is not
it's
going to happen.
not gonna work well.
She's going to be flying there, and as soon as she gets there, I'm going home. Take care of the kids.
I had gotten this passport years before, and it's just sitting in our safe at home.
Picture it in like glass in case of emergency.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was being used in case of emergency. Yeah, but I had it, so it was scary for me. And the trip was eye-opening for me because I'd never taken more than an hour and a half flight. Like, this whole hopping on a plane, flying overnight, and then trying to navigate in a foreign country and get to your hotel, and then you're just exhausted. And
It was awesome.
but it
was awesome.
It was awesome. It was great. It was great. It was great. Once I got there, I was able to just, and everything slowed down, and we had a really good time together.
So how was it like for you then? Getting that text, say we're going on Sunday, other than mind blowing.
Yeah. I think a couple things. One is like, it was awesome because I knew she was trying to make me happy. I thought that was really cool. I love the fact, I'm very cognizant of the fact that we do have freedom now that we didn't used to have. I'm also very cognizant of the fact that I make enough money to where we can say, let's buy plane tickets tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And, a lot of people can't ever do that.
And you guys were those people before.
We couldn't do it before at
Yeah,
all.
we definitely were.
So,
and we also, what worked in our benefit was booking them last minute. It was like, these are the
Cheap.
seats that are left. It's cheap.
it was actually very cheap.
It was a lot cheaper than what we were looking at before.
Yeah, like
So
a
it
third
worked out.
of what
Yeah.
like a normal ticket could be
Yeah.
because it was last minute. It's
Because
not a
it
bad
was-
strategy.
Right.
Yeah, traveling within 5 days,
Yeah, they just
So-
wanted to fill up the plane.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But, but still, we could take a 2-week vacation in Italy. And again, when I was starting Tan and getting that thing up and going, we bought that out of bankruptcy and trying to save that sucker, and it was broke. And before that, I was a government employee.
Right.
So, we didn't make a lot of money. Even though if I did well compared to most people, kids are expensive.
Yeah, but our
So-
oldest daughter, she'll see our little kids and she's like, their clothes are so cute. Like my clothes never, I'm like, your clothes were whatever was $1 at Goodwill for
Yeah,
years. Like
yeah.
that's where we went to get your clothes. And it was, the clothes were
Fun.
great. It
Rich
served
people
its
dropping
purpose.
off their
It-
stuff.
Yeah, and we lived in DC at the time, so it was a very transient area. So there were lots of options at Goodwill. It's where we got everything. We got a Christmas tree at Goodwill. We got all the kids' Christmas presents at Goodwill. Like that's the only place I went to shop.
A lot of the fun stuff she did on Saturday mornings was
Yard selling.
Yard selling. It's
Yeah.
a big thing in DC because people come in and out so quickly,
Sure.
and they just abandon
Our furniture all came, from yard sales or from Goodwill. So
everything. DC, like
Yeah.
people are there for a year and they leave everything and move to China,
mhm.
for some lobbyist job or whatever the hell they do.
Mhm.
And so we're going around. I mean, I called it dumpster diving, but it was really nice dumpsters.
Yeah, it was awesome. And I would go with a friend of mine a lot of times and leave. We'd leave early. I mean, we were like 5 a.m., get together, have coffee, map out our route. and then hit the yard sales and leave the dads at home with the little kids. Maybe take the baby if the baby was, still nursing, but everybody else stayed at home, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
And so that's one of the constant rebuttals, I guess, to having large families. People default to it costs too much, right? Kids are too expensive. I've heard your rant on it before.
Man, I get pissed off, but go ahead.
What about you?
Yeah, kids. Kids, you do have to buy stuff for kids. Like, you do have to feed them. You do have to clothe them. But the housing, you're providing the housing anyway. It's like we had a lot of kids in a very, tight space for a really long time. Yeah, we do. We've got a lot of kids. Square footage per person in our house is not a lot.
How many people are in the main house?
Let's think. 4 kids are not in the main house, so that leaves 12 plus us, 14.
14 people are in less than 4,000 square feet.
Right. And just to break it down to the numbers, your youngest is 5 months now?
3 months.
3 months.
Yeah, 3 months.
She's down the hall.
Right.
Yeah, she's down the hall. With the 12-year-old because, she's got to be close by. So.
And the oldest, 22.
22.
So 16 within 22 years.
Yes. Yeah.
But my point is, we still don't have a lot of square footage. Our house,
I want less, though. I would not trade my house for a bigger. It's more to keep up with.
Mm-hmm.
It holds more stuff, which you really just don't need. I kind of lean minimalist. And the more kids I have, the less things I have. We get rid of stuff a lot. I've got a 1 in, 1 out policy. New toy comes in, old toy has to go out. Because for me, it's just clutter to have to maintain and manage. And my kids have more fun with their toys when they have fewer toys. The more there is, it's just they can't even process, what do I do now? But it's here's a box of Legos, here's a box of wooden blocks, here's a box of knights and horses and dinosaurs and
board games are big.
We do a lot of board games with our older kids. Yeah, the little ones
but
have
even 7-year-olds are playing board games now.
Yes, they do.
A lot.
Our 7-year-old twins, they play chess together. They play we play family games. They get involved in.
All right. So last night they were playing the 7-year-olds and then David and Emma. I was watching something on TV and they're playing Elf Monopoly.
Oh, right.
It's
right. I did. Yeah.
Sure. The elf.
The elf thing. But they play something all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But people would be shocked how few items
you open my closets and they're pretty much empty. A lot of them are half empty because it's just, at some point I went, I can't stay on top of all of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So let's have what we need. Let's not have extra things. If we're going to bring new things in for Christmas, for birthdays, let's make sure that we're, sharing some of our other things that we're done with other people. And
the houses that people buy for a family of 4 or 5 it's absurd. Okay, if it's an investment, okay, I get it. But it's usually not an investment. They roll one equity into the next house and the next house and the next house. And they want to tell themselves it's an investment, and they never pay off the house, so they don't ever really benefit from it. That's just the reality. But, the amount of square footage that kids need is minimal. It's just minimal. And tell them the story of that yuppie idiot at country club years ago.
We didn't have to say the name of the place.
We'll bleep it out.
Yeah.
No, we won't. Yeah. Country club, a bunch of yuppies there.
We're there, and I think I was pregnant with number 10 at the time, and I'm standing in the pool, and when I'm at the pool, I'm lifeguard. That's what I'm doing. I am there to make myself centrally located in the water and constantly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
So one of the most stressful experiences you can have.
It is, but at the same time, I'm okay, the people who need the floaties have the floaties. It's just my responsibility to just, for 2 hours, let them burn off energy, plant myself in the middle, hold the baby, and just count constantly and make sure that I have everybody.
I hate it. I hate it because I get distracted. I'm like, oh, a bird.
Yeah. He does. He Connor doesn't go to the pool a lot with us, but
he might not be invited. It sounds like.
So we're there, and I'm counting, and I'm pregnant. And she's like, oh, she saw me with the 2 little ones around me. Oh, you've got 2 kids. I was like, no, this is actually my 10th. And she's like, you must have the biggest house in Fort Mill. I'm like, I have a medium-sized house.
How
in
big was
Fort
that
Mill.
house in Baxter? Would have been Baxter, right?
Yeah, it was like 2,500 square feet. I think.
2,500 square feet.
Yeah.
10 kids,
So yeah.
12 people.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I said, I've got a medium-sized house in Fort Mill, and she's like, well, but how many bedrooms do you have? And I'm like, well, I mean, 3, but we use an extra room as about 4, really. We use a fourth room as a bedroom. And she's like, so they share? I'm like, yeah, they do. They share rooms. And it was like, whoa, I've never even thought about, you can have kids share a bedroom. I'm like, you can actually,
She's like, oh.
Yeah, that is actually, that's
what she
exactly
said.
what she goes,
Oh, they share.
oh, I get it.
I get it. I'm a smart one. I'm on to it now. They share.
I get it. They share,
Yeah.
but it's like you have 10 kids. Do you have 11 bedrooms? Because how does that work?
I've heard different philosophies on that. I've heard the one that probably the country club yuppie was coming from, like the secret to success in a marriage and family is square footage, right? Which is nauseating to hear. And I've heard the opposite of people who are on the other side of it and have gotten to a place financially where they can upgrade their house and feel like they need to get a bigger one. And then they say, hey, man, I really wish our house was smaller because we're missing stuff.
What they're all missing is pay off the damn thing.
Yeah.
The secret, if there's a secret to happiness, is to have no debt. The debt is a psychological trauma. Just go listen to Dave Ramsey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's what people are missing.
But I think what this person I was listening to was talking about was just missing the proximity. Like their kids could go escape.
Yes, that's right. And when they
Very
have, we very intentionally don't want any of our kids to have their own rooms.
No.
It's our family spends most of the time in the common areas downstairs. So bedrooms in our home are used for sleeping. And then for the older kids who, again, all share rooms, they go up there sometimes to get their schoolwork done because they're homeschooled and it is a quiet place in the house that they can go. But it's still good for them to have community even up there. So there's never fewer than 2 people.
Privacy. No.
So, yeah.
No, forget privacy, parents. It's dangerous for kids.
Yeah.
It makes them self-centered. There's obviously the threat of technology and getting exposed
There's
to
more of a feeling
pornography.
of but there's also just a sense of this is mine.
Yeah,
Get out of my room.
Entitlement.
Nobody has my room, at our house.
They don't.
Because they have to share it with multiple other people. So,
Exactly
yeah.
right.
I don't have my room. I share my room, with him, and then also with the baby right now, and then also with.
Or I share my bedroom with her. I don't know which one.
It's definitely my space.
Wait a minute,
He
it's my
has an
space. I
office
share with her.
space, but the kids are in and out of if I walk in my room and I'm in there for longer than 60 seconds, I get 3 little people following me.
Right.
They want to be wherever we are. So
And I'm like, will you get out of my
it's not
room,
my
please?
space.
I want to smooch my wife. Get out. I'll tell them that. And they're like, they run for their lives. They're like, ah! And they run. That's the only way it works.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, the question that I would have is,
Sorry,
is
I talked about smooching you.
yeah,
I'm sorry.
I'm just
No, it's a great move. It's a great.
absolutely not going to engage there.
That's not a dad with 16 kids move. That's a dad move.
I've learned
Yeah.
if you ignore it, it will eventually go away. So.
So I guess the concern that might pop up in a lot of people's heads if you hear that about kids not having privacy is then how do you foster independence, right? They don't go hand to hand exactly, obviously, but I think that would be the concern that pops in my head. I feel like I have to give them their sense of self to some degree to make sure they're independent. What's your mindset on that? How does that work? Because I've met your older kids, especially, they seem very independent and very, very well adjusted and the whole thing.
Yeah, so they take a lot of responsibility for their own education, actually. They have, for our older kids, we hire teachers to teach them certain classes, but they're responsible for getting those things, uploaded and assignments sent in and, all of those things on time. And I really don't manage it at all. We actually haven't run into yet having a problem where a kid just consistently is not doing their work. But I think, especially on the older end of things, that has been helpful. Jobs outside of the home, like our kids typically get a job when they're 15, and they start working outside of the home. And that's a piece of, something that they're doing outside of the family. That environment is managed by us in that there's some jobs where like, no, we don't want you doing that. Like lifeguarding at the pool, and you're a 15-year-old male, you don't need to be watching girls in bikinis all day long. Like we're not doing that, but you want to go work at Chick-fil-A, you want to work at our local bagel shop, owned by good, Christian people, it's a pretty good work environment. Yeah, you can go do that. So they do get a sense of independence, in that way. Our middle schoolers attend classes outside of the house, so they get to go and do, in that way. They also do extracurricular activities, sewing, sports, things like that, some of them. And so they get to go do that. Some of them do CrossFit. Some of them, like they all have their own, things that they get to go do, which I think does give them a sense of independence. And I really think the balancing of their school schedule, much in the way a college student does, right? You attend class, but only a couple times a week, then you're responsible for everything else. You do the reading, you do the assignments, you submit the work, you do the exams, and you get a grade. As a parent, I'm copied on everything. If I feel like I've got a problem, I can read that email, but most of the time I don't. But I think that breeds responsibility in them. And then also having the job makes them accountable, not only for somebody else's schedule, but also gives them a little bit of financial responsibility. They do a lot of purchasing of their own items at that point too, which is good.
Yeah. Have you guys always done that, by the way, the financial piece of it? Or was that an adjustment?
Yeah,
at
I
some
talked
point?
a lot about like we give them a lot of money
Allowance.
for chore allowance, and
Even
stuff
the
for-
younger ones.
but
yeah.
that's earned. And but then we pay them well for it, and then they have to buy a lot of stuff themselves that we would end up buying anyway. It's not more money; it's the same amount of money. It's just who's in charge of it.
Yeah, they get to make the choice for themselves. So, they want to spend, twice as much on a nicer pair of sneakers. They're at liberty to do that, but they then have less to spend on, going to the movie. If they want to go to a movie with a friend, that's their money to spend when they go to a movie with a friend. So they have to learn how to kind of balance their own finances in that way. And there's still some things, every season kids need new coats, new whatever, like I go and make sure that all the holes are filled, but it gives them some choice and some ownership in the items that they want.
Yeah. Yeah. The independence thing, I think it's a bunch of garbage, to be honest. Like, the first command is love God with all your heart, mind, soul, strength. And the second is love your neighbor as yourself. The third one's not be good at being alone. Like that's what the hell's that?
Yeah.
So,
We're communal creatures.
communal
Like we need-
creatures.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so my point is that I think we've met our kids' bosses now, they're high school bosses that at the Whitewater Center, at Chick-fil-A, now at the bagel shop. We got 2 kids working at the bagel shop. And, we always end up meeting their bosses at some point, and they say to us, and we're not here to brag like our kids are awesome because they stink in certain ways, but that's not what we're here to. That's another episode. How our kids stink. But they say, God, I wish all of the teenagers would work like your kids. They're so well behaved and their work ethic's fantastic. They shower us with compliments. But that's not because they learned how to be autonomous. It's because they learned how to deal with other people and do their chores and take orders and take responsibility. Like that's from communal living.
Right. Working in a system. They know how to work in a system. Yeah.
Exactly. It's not from being alone in the room.
Right.
That's the kids that can't show up and do the job are the ones that grew up alone in their bedrooms.
Mhm.
Sure.
Yeah.
So it's almost counterintuitive to me then. By having more people, you're more independent. You learn
are.
a sense of independence, and maybe it's accountability, and then that breeds independence or something like that. Because I'm guessing your kids. I was going to ask, how do you determine who is better with the younger kids or not? But it sounds like they are just naturally accustomed to having the younger ones there, so they
Some are
learn
better
how-
than others.
I'm
for
sure some are.
Yeah, some are better, and some are just better suited naturally by
Right.
temperament to deal with young children.
Well, you can tell them about the twins right now. I mean, they ain't going to watch this podcast ever if they do this like 10 years from now.
Yeah. So 7-year-old twin boys, born at the same time, raised in identical environments, And we've got one who has become the baby's favorite. And he is just a natural nurturer. So he can pick her up and bounce her, and he plays with her and she smiles at him. And the other one, he also spends a lot of his day trying to engage with her. So it's an interest that he has. He's very interested in her. And so he meets her where she is. The other twin wants that type of relationship, but doesn't put in the time and the effort to get there. And he's also just naturally, he's stiffer. You know, he's not as good at it.
And it's like,
what do I do? You know,
we're like, well, don't drop the baby. You know, I mean, he looks like he's going to fumble her. And he just doesn't feel as secure holding this baby. And the baby's like, hey, he's going to drop me. You know, so we have to like, but the other one is just
backpack across Europe.
Could backpack across Europe.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's amazing. One is perfectly comfortable. The other one wants to be, but it's just not.
Yeah.
Right. Wait a second. So the social media video is don't let a tree fall on the baby while the baby's napping, right?
She hasn't seen it.
I haven't seen that one yet. Because I'm not on social
She
media.
hasn't.
I have no
good for
social
you.
media.
So I put
Yeah.
a video of the
That's
twins
great.
on our
So he's the
Instagram
one
page.
not as good with the babies, I would guess, then, right?
Yes, right.
Right.
Well, so I'm asking the twins, I say, what are some parenting advice? And they say, hey, teach your kids how to pray, whatever. And then Luke said, make sure a tree doesn't fall on your baby.
Well, the baby's taking a nap.
It's, you know what? It's solid advice.
No doubt.
We're outside on the bridge and he's looking around and he sees a tree. He's like, make sure a tree doesn't fall. It's just, whatever, Luke.
Yeah.
Luke's awesome.
He
He's
is.
awesome. He's a sweet little boy.
Yes.
Sure, but that's to the point of kids are different.
Yeah.
Kids are different. Different strengths, different weaknesses, and you got to learn how to like draw out those strengths, minimize those weaknesses. You know.
Yeah.
Was there ever a point where you felt like it clicked for you, or was that always just inherent? Did you know that just kind of based on your upbringing?
No, I didn't. I think
I don't even know how many siblings you have.
one sister, 14 months younger than me. So I didn't grow up with little kids in the house. I didn't grow up with boys in the house. And I grew up in a very like tightly controlled, everything was systematized in my home.
Her mother worked for the Red Cross. Her dad was a firefighter.
Yeah.
So this was like
so I went
clean, super safe,
not only that, but like
Procedural.
I can
Oh,
remember
gosh.
being in middle school and I went to a sleepover at a friend's house and I'm looking around her bedroom and I'm like, oh, I'll see a smoke detector. Like, and in middle school. And I realized there's no smoke detector. So I'm like, hey, where's the smoke detector? She's like, there's one downstairs. I'm like, we're burning to death tonight. Like, and so
smoke rises.
yeah, I'm laying there and I'm thinking, can you do this? Can you do this? And I'm like, I got it. I don't feel good. I got to call my parents. Like, and I got picked up because it was just so ingrained in me,
that's messed
like
up.
that
That's totally messed
it is, right? And I've come a long way because on the trip to Italy,
Oh
like
my gosh.
when I,
Oh my gosh. I learned about this
just
after the trip.
a couple weeks ago, I
Yeah.
told you about this, but I did tell my friends about it right away.
I'm married to a lunatic.
Yeah. Well, a little bit, but there's growth in there. Okay.
There you
So I travel generally with a carbon monoxide detector. Again, part of my upbringing.
I mean,
but,
what do you say to that?
But also,
I don't understand.
in my defense, okay, there was somebody in our homeschool community and they went to a homeschool conference. We're staying above the pump room for the pool, and the little boy died of carbon monoxide poisoning, and they found the mom in time and she lived, but the two of them were there. So once that story, like things
Yeah,
get in,
but
once it's in your
People also
head.
got struck by lightning
I know.
and abducted by aliens. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's pretty rare.
It is very, very rare. But once it's there, for me, it's really hard for me to get that voice out of my head. So I travel with carbon monoxide detector. We get to Italy. I'm like, I planned this in 5 days and I forgot my carbon monoxide detector. Like, okay. So I'm thinking, is there like a Lowe's in Italy where I can get a carbon monoxide detector?
La Losa or something? I don't know.
And there's no Lowe's. And I'm looking at him and I'm like, if I say this to him, it's going to ruin the trip.
Yeah, I'd
right?
be
Like
like, what the
he's
hell are
going
you
to be
talking
like,
about? You gotta
I
be
brought you
kidding
to Italy and you're talking about finding a carbon monoxide detector. So I'm going, okay, you're going to have to suck this up and not say anything about it. You're not finding a carbon monoxide detector. You're going to have to be okay with sleeping without one.
Right.
And so we did. And
I'm
then
proud of you, hon.
yeah. And I get home and I'm telling the story to a friend of mine and she's like, well, I mean, the weather was beautiful. Why didn't you open the window? And I'm like,
Window.
I could have slept better that first night if I had cracked the window and I didn't think. I'm like, you, Amy, you're a genius. You're an absolute genius. I should have called you.
What do I do? Yeah.
And you didn't even hear about this until
No, thank
I
goodness.
didn't
She was
hear.
smart enough not to tell me.
Right.
Swallow
Because
it.
I'm like, hey, let's go see this dead saint who's been here for 1,000 years. And she's like, how about if we find a Lowe's? So that would have been bad.
That would have been
So,
really, really bad. I realized it was going to be really bad. So
It was awesome.
yeah, I didn't say anything.
Wow.
And I got comfortable sleeping without a carbon
But
monoxide
the
detector.
moral of the story is that like that's the way she grew up.
But let me be
And-
clear, like, use carbon monoxide detectors.
Yeah, not when you travel. You don't have to take it with you. But she the number of kids has forced a lot of that garbage out of her. Like she is a lot more relaxed. than-
Flexible.
yeah.
Yeah. There's a
And that's
lot
just
of.
a silly little example. But you cannot be
You
an
can't
anal
hold like
retentive
certain
person.
standards. Like I think I tried to hold on to certain standards of like my home must always look this way. I must always present myself this way. You know, and at a certain point you go, this is killing the joy in my home. Like trying to keep up this standard, something has to give. You know, me, the environment that I grew up in, you know, that really pushed me towards feeling like if you're a good parent, you have to do all of these things. Your house has to always be immaculate. The bathrooms always have to be presentable. They've always got to have like fresh, you know, hand towels in there. And that was really sucking the joy out of my day, which was sucking the joy out of all of my kids' days. And I was missing out on all of these little opportunities, you know, where they're like, mommy, look at this picture. And I'm like, okay, I'm scrubbing the toilet. We'll talk later. You know, I was missing out on that.
So what has to not give?
What has to not give?
Yeah, you said like a lot of stuff has to give.
Right.
What has to never give?
Joy. Joy has to never give. Like that has to be primary. I mean, obviously needs must be met. You can't be like, oh, I'm happy, but the kids didn't eat for 3 days. Like that's not okay. You know, obviously.
I say marriage, mom and dad making sure that the marriage is all good, spending time together, doing whatever they need to do. Kids are second.
Yes, absolutely. Kids are second. Marriage is first. And the kids seeing that the marriage is first is really good for the kids too. You know, they know if mommy has a choice of who to spend time with, it's going to be dad, you know.
Speaking of well-ordered, it's the marriage that really creates the order. Everything else is a byproduct of that.
When it's also a witness to the kids as they grow up and then they choose, hopefully, you know, choose spouses that are going to have the same commitment, you know, to each other. So.
Have you guys always been on the same page with that? Has that been a maturing process? I mean,
I think
you guys are going on 23, 24 years married, right?
Intellectually, we would always have agreed with that statement.
Yeah.
But practically,
Right.
in the way that the day-to-day worked, it wasn't always that way, you know, because there was so much.
She's had a lot of learning to do to catch up with my
Yeah.
perfection.
He was just awesome.
From day one.
Wonderful.
But I was patient and waited for her to catch up with me.
Yeah. And
What a guy.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
no, we both I
Yeah.
I've learned a lot
Yeah.
over the years. And also I've learned a lot about just because this is what I need in a marriage in order to feel like things are going well isn't what he needs in the marriage in order to feel like things are going well. And so learning to give him what he needs and then also be vocal about what I need because he's not, you know, always in tune with how I'm feeling. And I'm not the most emotive person. So it's not always, you know, written on my face either or, you know.
I'm basically oblivious to a lot.
Yeah.
Aren't we all?
Yeah.
All husbands are.
But it's one thing for a wife to complain. It's another thing for a wife to request.
Right.
And I think women are terrible at that. By and
No, a
large.
lot of it, I think early on for me was a lot of passive aggressiveness. Like I'm not going to say anything, but I'm, you know, going to communicate with my tone of voice and my body language
And
that
you should know.
I'm irritated. And he's, you know, are you irritated? And I'm, no, I'm not irritated. Are you sure you're not irritated? I'm fine. I'm just going to do all this work all by myself and it's going to be just fine, you know?
Okay.
And he's like, sweet, because the Packers are playing and that's what I'm going to do today since you're happy doing everything else, you
Yeah,
know?
but it's so much better
So-
if when people can be direct with charity It's like truth and charity. No, I'm not okay. I would really appreciate if you would do X, Y, and Z before you watch a Packer game.
Sure.
And then it's like, okay. And then you do it. I mean, it's most people would do it, but it's the passive aggressive crap that, really drives a wedge between people.
Do you guys think having more kids was almost God's way in getting you guys to that point?
Oh, I've told priests that. I've told a lot of people that for me, because it's like a lot of people can't have the number of kids that we've had. It just does not happen for them. And so why me? Like, why has this happened, for me? And I really think that it was a process. Like, without these kids, I would be a much worse person. So it was a process of really minimizing my weaknesses. Like, God's like, you're not good enough. I know you're not going to do it on your own. So I'm just going to give you what you need. Like, as a loving father, this is what you need in order to, like, calm you down, dial you back, recenter you towards me, towards your husband, and then towards your kids. And then, your home and your life outside of your home, down below that. But without that, my ordering would be very different, So, I mean, my home and the way it looks and the way that, I go about my day would be much higher up on that list than it should be. So at a certain point, it becomes impossible. Like, you can't keep up with certain standards. And so it was, for me, God just stripping those things away from me. I didn't really hand them to him. He just took them away. And I'm like, oh, thank you. You took that away. And actually, my life is much better now.
I think you see a family, no matter how many kids they have, 1, 2, 3, whatever, and if they have like a disabled child, it incredibly sets their priorities straight, like in an amazing way. Usually and you can be a jerk no matter what your situation is. But if you have a kid who's sick or really suffering, their priorities get straight real quick. And I'm not trying to compare a bunch of kids to like having one disabled kid. It's not, but it's a constraint. And I think that those kinds of difficulty sufferings, it helps you set your priorities straight. And we live in an age of complete ease and, materialism, that parents are able to be completely spoiled, and then they spoil their kids. And so for us, certainly not saying everybody has to have a bunch of kids, but for us, being open to life like that, I think helped us both get less attached to our own expectations of things. And so we're both better at going with the flow.
Yeah, I've heard people say, like, oh, you have all these kids, you must be a saint. And I'm like, no, but, God wants me to be. And that's why he gave me the kids, because I'm so far from that. He knew I needed this, in order to grow closer to him. So.
Have there been specific?
They never say, "Wow, your husband must be a saint." They never say that. They never look at me and say, "Wow, you must be a saint having all those kids." They say, "Well, your wife must be a saint." I'm like, "What about me?"
It's rough.
Come on, I'm involved.
Were there moments when you felt like this was kind of made apparent to you, or was this a kind of gradual process that you kind of came to, or an understanding that you came to?
I think a gradual process. Yeah. There was no aha moment. It just,
Is it almost like, let me ask it another way, is it a process that you have to almost feel like you hit rock bottom in some ways? You hear those stories sometimes, and that's can be a catalyst for a change or a different understanding. This might not apply in this situation.
Yeah, for me, I don't think it was hitting rock bottom as much as kind of climbing out of that hole a little bit, looking back and going, whoa, I was actually a lot further down than I thought that I was. So it wasn't even in the moment and a realization of, this is where I am in my life and my spiritual life, but then on the other side of that, looking back and going, wow, I didn't realize that that's where I was. And I'm really glad that, I'm not there now. So.
How about you?
I think there's definitely is gradual, but I can think of times when the reality of what we were doing, having all these kids, there's times when reality kind of sets in and they're little uppercuts from God or whatever that really wake you up to kind of shake you out of just like the normal flow. So I can think of when kids get hurt or, little things like, not little things. I actually wrote about it in this little book here, but like when one of our kids who's 15 now, broke his femur, and being in the hospital all night with him, that was kind of an eye opener of like, we're doing something really serious here. And then we had Teresa, who's 14. She had
14 now.
RSV and was admitted to the hospital.
When she was a baby, yeah.
That was an eye opener. So we have never, thank God, we've never had a tragedy like a lot of families have. But we've just had those little moments. I'm not even sure I'm answering the question that you asked, but my mind was on, you're stuck in the flow, the day-to-day stuff. And that's why you have little blips, on the radar, boop, broken femur, boop, RSV in the hospital, boom, miscarriages. She's had quite a few. Miscarriage, boom, miscarriage, boom. For me, those kinds, or, conflict with kids when that happens, which we're not going to like talk in detail about, but you will have pretty intense conflict with teenagers or young adults at some point, or you see that your kids are struggling in some way, like, they suffer, your kids suffer. Those are little blips on the radar that kind of that jerk me out of the normal everyday course. And you realize, okay, we're really doing something important and we got to take this serious, and we can't just go with the flow. We have to be intentional. We have to pray for the kids. We have to engage with them in certain ways. And that's probably exactly why we have these moments that kind of wake us up, at least for me. And you have to have those moments because we haven't had a tragedy, not like tragedy like a lot of people have. No, it's bound to happen at some point. But I think mine has been, gradual realization, but thank goodness for those more intense moments, because I probably wouldn't pay attention otherwise.
I've heard Conor say that you guys never had the plan necessarily to have 16 kids. You mentioned you only have one sibling.
Right.
Like, what's your perspective on that?
Right. I used to say, like, people say, oh, how do you get 3 kids, you got 4 kids, how do you do it? I'm like, oh, they just come one at a time. And then I got slammed with the twins, but there's definitely never been a plan. There's just been an openness to life throughout our marriage. And this is the way that, and we've never had, really a reason to delay pregnancy. And so it's always just been.
But we've assessed it.
Yeah, we've assessed it.
How are you physically? How are you emotionally?
Mentally. I had a series of 3 miscarriages in a row. And at the end of that, I was like, I think I'm going to need to hit the pause button for just a little bit, because I was a little bit of a emotional mess, and there was more of a toll, there, where I felt like I need to probably be in a healthier place, where if God sends us another baby and then that baby is taken very quickly from us, I'm going to be able to handle that with grace, So there was some spiritual work to be done there before I felt like we were ready but that's why, for us, it's, NFP, it's a month to month. You reassess, you talk to your spouse about it. Is there anything in our life that means, this might not be a good choice for us or not? And I mean, vast majority of the time we've been good, our family's been good, and it's been a good place. So yeah, never a plan to have a big family. I certainly liked, we went to Franciscan University of Steubenville, both of us, and, seeing all of the kids who came from, big families and that built-in community that they had, when the family weekends would come up and their family would come in, and it was very attractive to me, for sure. But never really a plan, just sort of the way it happened.
At some point, though, in the process for me, I realized that we were different. Just statistically. Come on, it's just the truth. And then it was a slower realization for me. It's like, okay, don't take this wrong, because if you have one kid, you're 100% parent, 100% dad, 100% mom. But at a certain point, I realized when we were doing something that was different, that was special, that was clearly God ordained, it kind of helped shape my identity a little bit more. Like, okay, I'm not just a dad with kids. I'm into this whole fatherhood thing. And I think that's so over time, it led to me writing parenting books and giving a lot of talks about parenting, and then the well-ordered family system. It kind of became a thing.
When did you get there? Remember?
I think a lot of light bulbs went off when we had the twins, number 11 and 12. That's a striking event. And then that's just 12 is a huge family. Like, I don't know where people draw the lines, but you've gone from big to huge, like, for sure.
In your mind, at least.
At least in mine. That's a very subjective, relative thing of like, what's big, what's huge, you know? And it's when, you know, I first wrote a parenting book. If Aristotle's kid had an iPod 10, 12 years ago, we didn't have that many kids then, but I realized that, okay, this was more of my identity than I even realized before. And then that kind of led me to create more stuff and eventually Wilder Family, which we're here talking about, sort of. So it was just you know, I don't think she had that same experience because she's not like writing books, but for me, it's different. It was just, I went from dad to like, I just kind of this deep realization that fatherhood was more of my identity than I had ever realized before, if that makes any sense at all.
Sure.
Yeah, I think the world I live in with moms, you know, motherhood is almost all of our identities. And it doesn't matter if you have one kid or you have, you know, 16 kids. Like every mom that I know is giving 100% to her kids. You know, it's divided up a little bit differently when it comes to 16 kids and not just the number, but the span of, you know, I've got to meet needs of my adult children because they do still need parents too, you know, these young adult children, but then also meet the needs of my newborns and my toddlers and everybody else in between. But, you know, the moms with 2 kids who are both grown and they're both adult kids now, they're still giving like 100%, you know, to those 2 kids. And the moms that have, you know, 2 or 3 little kids are still giving 100%. There's, you know, I don't do anything more than the moms with 3 kids. I just do it differently. So I don't think I identify as like more with motherhood than a mom that has 1 kid. Her motherhood, like her version of that is very different than mine on a day-to-day basis, but fundamentally we're the same. You know?
I agree.
So,
I mean, I think moms have like a more identity of motherhood than dads do. I mean, I think dads kind of have a distance
all day, every
a little
day.
bit.
Yeah. So,
but like, for example, I was sitting on a back porch one day at a business meeting and I was alone for a little bit looking over the beach. And I don't know, I just started saying, okay, if I have X amount of kids and I estimated how many we could have, again, not like we're aiming, it's not a game, but if I had X amount of kids and then if they, like how many of them would get married and have kids and what would the average number of kids be? And then if I lived to the age of 90 or whatever it was, how many grandkids and great grandkids would I likely have? And I started doing this math and I'm looking at this piece of paper saying, oh my gosh, this is like Father Abraham, you know? And that, I'm just saying that kind of, so what does that call me to? I mean, in one sense, no different than somebody has 1 kid, nothing different. But in another sense, it was like, okay, Connor could have, you know, 100 grandkids. I mean, I don't know, something crazy like that. How many great grandkids could I have? And so you start, in my mind, I had to say, okay, if this was almost like a business of like Connor's life with being father, grandfather, great grandfather is almost like a business. What's the 30-year vision? What's the 50-year vision? And then how does that vision change what I'm doing now? What do I want to do? How do I want to have a relationship with 50 grandkids?
Right.
How the hell do you do that?
because that's a lot different than a relationship with 5.
Right.
Yeah.
And so my mind starts going in those ways.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I mean by my identity kind of starts to shape and I start saying, how can I be an effective patriarch of this family? I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. So those types of things, again, I'm weird. I'm not saying that everyone thinks like that, but that's kind of the process. And that's what I mean when I say, all right, I have to be very intentional about what this identity is. Otherwise, she's home with the kids. I go to work, I come home, I help with the chores, put the kids to bed, and that's it. And we repeat, you know, so I have to be more than that. Mm. And so that's how my identity as father has evolved over time. I don't know.
And hearing you talk earlier about things being in the proper order, mm-hmm. and knowing you guys as I do, the spiritual component of this seems immeasurable in a lot of ways for you guys. And it seems like it would be nearly impossible, if not completely impossible, without that strong foundation. Did you guys, I guess, for people who don't know you and know that that is your life and how much of your life is centered around your spirituality, your religion, your Catholic religion, your faith in God. Is there a way to put that into words, I guess is my question, and how foundational your views aligning has led to where you are today?
Yeah, I think it's probably the number one thing that young people need to be aware of, and talking to, someone that they're dating even very early on in that relationship. Like, that is the piece that is, you have to be in the, on the same boat. Like, people get married and they're not, and then they grow together and they change. But you've got, up until, you get married, you have a choice. And so that should be the cornerstone of the marriage, is a shared faith. And also a commitment to practice that faith. Ultimately, that's the marriage commitment too, right? I'm saying that, I'm here before God, saying that, I will be married to you until death do us part, right? Well, if I don't really believe in God, or if I don't really, then what does that marriage vow even mean? Or if I'm like, yeah, he's cool, he's around, like, talk to him every once in a while when I need something, then how strong is that marriage vow? So I would say, I think that is absolutely the cornerstone. And then also, I think, for us, I'm a convert to Catholicism. I started that process before I ever met him, actually, as a teenager. I was 16 when I converted. But intellectually, I was there, and I knew, like, okay, and I'm a thinker, not a feeler, so this is something that's like, part of my strong suit is being able to kind of analyze a situation from the outside and go, okay, you need someone who is going to be a strong Catholic, right? You've gone through this conversion process, and so that is criteria for me for dating, right there. But I think that having that, as a cornerstone early on, like, intellectually, I know this is what it has to be, but then, like, you get married and you have kids, and then you have to, like, live that out day to day. So, like, the rubber does meet the road. And you do have to, like, continually to make that decision. Like, it is going to be a priority for us to show up for Mass every Sunday, every holy day of obligation. Like, at a minimum, we are required to do that. And, it's going to be a priority for us to pray as a family, pray as a couple. And, there's times where, like, we're really strong in that, and there's times where things happen, busyness happens, and it kind of peters down, and then there's consequences, for that too. So we got to, like, be cognizant of that and bring it back up. But there's no way that we would be where we are. Like, we might not even be married, without a shared commitment to our faith.
Where are you on that?
Yeah, everything she said. I would say that I have this pet peeve where I feel like people put God on their to-do list, and I think God is the to-do list, period. And so everything that we have to do with kids, especially her, taking care of the kids, educating the kids, all that stuff, all the chores, all the carpools, all the whatever, you're living out your vocation. You're fulfilling the duties of your station in life. St. Francis de Sales talks about holiness is found in fulfilling the duties of your station in life. And my dad latched onto that years ago, and he just drilled it into our heads as boys. That holiness is the fulfillment of your duties of your station in life. Well, her duty, her station in life is what is it?
I am not your husband.
Wife and mother. Wife and mother. That's her station in life. And so living that out properly is the act of holiness. And so prayer goes on your to-do list, but faith doesn't. Your relationship with God doesn't, because everything on your to-do list is an act of that relationship. Mm-hmm. Going to Mass or confession or praying with the kids at night, like, that's on a to-do list. But the living out of your faith is that is your whole life. There should be nothing outside of that, and anything outside of that is vapid and lonely and just ultimately despairing, which is why we have a 50% divorce rate in this country. So, yeah, without our faith, she might be with a much better looking, much wealthier guy.
I don't.
And I don't like that idea at all.
I don't think so.
And I might be in prison for killing him.
I'm glad we kind of established that, or at least put some words to that, because getting to too many practicalities without it, I think, is exactly what you just said. It's kind of vapid and superficial and meaningless. But let me start with this. Okay. 1 through 10, 1 being absolute hate and 10 being absolutely love. Where is doing this podcast on your scale?
Oh, come on.
I feel kind of this way about it.
I think that's like a 2.
No. It's a strong 5.
Okay.
It's a strong 5. I think.
I'm having a 10 watching her.
Yeah, you texted me and said, can you come in, Monday or Wednesday? I was like, yeah, I can do that. What type of time frame are we talking about? And there's like a delay, and then it's 4 hours, and I'm like, I really, really thought you were going to say 30 minutes. Yeah. That's how much I know about this.
Podcasts are intense, man.
Yeah, here's the thing. I don't consume a lot of podcasts. I do occasionally, like somebody will send me an episode of something I'm particularly interested in, but I just don't have a lot of time. So I don't know how this stuff works. So for me, that was a new one, but I'm like, okay, we can do that.
We drove to Raleigh on Saturday to see our daughter and their new house and everything. And we listened to Tucker Carlson episode, Dr. Mark Hyman, on the food industry. And it was kind of amazing. But, we're trying to get food squared away right in our family. It's a constant battle, really trying to eat healthy. And she's been doing that for a long time. But
so that's one of the few podcasts that I have ever listened to, because we happened to be in the car, just us and the baby, with a 3-hour drive ahead of us. And he's like, you want to listen to something? I'm like, wow, yeah, that'd be great. My kids make fun of me because classical music is all that I play in the car. And that really isn't so much about having the kids listen to it as it sort of just is peaceful to me. And that's what I want to listen to. And my kids are like, oh, can we listen to? I'm like, no. Can we play Bluetooth? I'm like, no. We can't, because this is my car, and this is one of the things that I can actually control is what we listen to in the car, and I get to make that choice. So I'll do that, but I can't listen to a podcast in the car because I can't follow. There's too much other noise, Sure.
She listens to the classical music station so much, being in the car for hours a day. She donated one time to this stupid...
Not only did I donate it, because I was feeling guilty. I'm like, oh, they need donations. And here's the thing, like, I probably use this station more than anyone else in the Charlotte metro area. So I really should give them some money. So I'm thinking, okay. And the kids are like, Mom, you listen to this all the time. They need money. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to make this donation. And then he was teaching a class for some of our high schoolers. Yeah. And one of the kids in the class comes in and he's like, hey, my dad heard your wife donating to the classical music station.
She didn't know it was going to be like, they announced her name on the radio.
They announced my name,
She had no idea it was going to be made public.
And I'm like, okay, just got caught. Yeah, I did make that donation. So okay. Because usually it's got to be, an organization that we feel really, really strongly about. Yeah. But I feel strongly about this. It provides me with a lot of comfort throughout my day.
Yeah, so. And it wasn't much anyway, but it's wait a minute. My wife is advertised on the radio for giving money, and I don't even know about it.
I hear that you donated money on the radio. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that was going to be publicized.
So this is not your broadcast debut. No, that's what we're here.
Right. That's it. Right. I've been on. Yeah.
So what I heard there was a couple of different things when it comes to like practicalities, right? No social media.
For me, no, I just can't. I mean, there's the thing, like I have a hard enough time just keeping up with text messages and with emails. And so I can't be on social media. It would really overtake my life. I mean, as it is, just managing, the other things that I do online, because I grocery shop online. Like that's not even a grocery store activity for me. That's an online thing. I feel like I have a screen in front of my face so many, hours a day already. I have intentionally said, I don't want that. I feel like it would be a huge temptation for me and pull me away from the other things that I need to be doing in my life. So.
Broadcast pro, she segued into the other thing. You were talking about food. You mentioned online grocery shopping.
Yeah.
So that's, I'm sure, a huge curiosity you always get is like, how does the food situation work, especially for moms and meal prepping and the whole thing, right?
Right. So I actually, I grocery shop online a couple times a week. There's usually a big Sam's Club order for us. And then there's another grocery store that I order from. And they actually drive the groceries to my home, which is incredible because we live in a very rural area. I am 20 minutes from a grocery store. So like the $10 delivery fee, I'm like, sign me up. I will do that one.
How long have they been doing that for you?
Not long.
Not long.
Right.
Yeah, not long. Like we can't get pizza delivery. They won't come to us.
Or
we don't
trash
get,
pickup.
Yeah, or trash pickup. Like we don't get.
We got to take our stupid trash to the dump.
Yeah, we do every week.
Which I used to do.
Don't.
I don't
yeah,
really
I'm
anymore.
like, what are you complaining about? Yeah.
Mid-level management. You're the garbage man. Go.
Yeah, you have a license and a vehicle that you have use of, so you
Yeah.
are now the trash man.
Yeah.
Nice.
So-
Have you rotated trash men yet? Or
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But the amount
I can imagine.
amount of trash
It's
that
embarrassing.
comes
Let's
out
not
of
talk
our
about
house
it.
on a 7-day cycle and goes in the back of my 2500 Silverado pickup truck. It fills that thing to the brim every stinking week.
Well,
Yeah.
but that's hand in hand with the food, though, right?
It is, yeah.
I mean, but like
it's a
the
lot.
big, do you know the huge trash cans?
Uh-huh.
Like the huge ones that are outside a house. Like how many do we have?
5.
Plus a normal size. Like,
No, well, I'm sorry. We have 4 plus a normal size one.
okay, so we have 5 pretty big trash cans outside next to the driveway.
Yeah.
And all of them are overflowing with stupid dogs or whatever we'll get into. You know, if it's hanging over the edge, the dogs or raccoons or something will get into it every stinking week. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable. I don't understand. This is how much stuff
So
we consume.
But to the food thing, you know, it's I haven't found it any more difficult to cook for the number of people we have in our home now than I did when we just had little people, because it's just more quantity,
Yeah.
right? So instead of boiling like 1 pot of pasta, like I'm boiling 2 pots at the same time, you know, instead of using a normal size skillet, I have like a jumbo, you know, skillet. So I'm doing chicken in that, you know, but it's not really more work. I mean, the cleanup is basically the same afterwards. Like a lot of the,
Disagree about.
well, okay, so there's a lot more dishes that get used, okay, but I just mean from the process of cooking, you know, it's, you know, are you slicing 1 onion, you're slicing, you know, 3, like, you know, it's just more in quantity. So I guess it takes a little bit more time, but it also feels worth it at the end because you're sitting at this huge table that's filled with people and then overflowing into bar stool seats and it's just packed and there's community and everyone's talking and laughing and joking and enjoying the food that's been made, you know. So it definitely feels like it's in the worth it category.
I think food's awesome because it just brings people together, but it really is an excuse for people to come together. I would like to think they come anyway, but when our adult children, whether college or married with kids now, they come home. You know, people said, you know, just recently, oh, how was your Thanksgiving? And it was great, but it was like, well, pretty much the same as all the time. I mean, it's really not that different because most of our kids live near here and one's moved away, but we always have a big party at our house.
Right.
And so that's what
so
Thanksgiving was just another party.
Having my parents over, having your parents over, like having a couple extra people is not like that's nothing. You know, it just doesn't really add up. We frequently have. I've got friends who their youngest children are high school age now, and so they spend a lot of time at our house. And my friends like that because they get the exposure to the family and the kids, and I like that because my high schoolers now have, you know, a sense of as they go about their day and doing their schoolwork, they've got people that they enjoy their company, you know, that they're working with, getting their schoolwork done. But, you know, friends of mine, they would say like, oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot to pack her lunch again. She didn't bring her lunch. You know, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like it doesn't, like, let me Venmo you. I'm like,
Yes.
seriously?
Send me $4.28.
It was nothing.
We'll call it even.
Okay. Because I'm making lunch for all these people anyway. It doesn't, like, I didn't even change the quantity that I made. I just added a side salad and divvied up the meat differently. Like, you know, so.
It's easy for our house, our family. We have like a rhythm down now to where we could have 20 people at our home eating, and it's kind of normal.
Yeah, it's definitely normal. And I like it that way because like yesterday, our adult son and his wife and their baby, he texts me, we're on our way home from Mass. He's like, can we hang out later? I'm
And we
like,
had a friend, a college friend.
yeah, Peter brought a college friend over too. It didn't change what we were doing for the day. Like nothing happened. We were still making big paninis for lunch. We were watching the football game, clay shooting in the backyard, and then off to tour Christmastown, USA. in Haddonville.
Yesterday was pretty
So,
awesome. So it's
Yeah.
like, so we go to Mass, and we get home, and we make these massive paninis. They're so good. Like she's got this recipe thing down. I don't know how good a sandwich can be.
No,
but
it's just build your own. So
It's-
that,
it's
you
amazing.
just like that you can pick your own toppings.
That's
and
amazing.
What do you throw in there?
me,
Yeah.
I do.
You can't just tell me it's really good and then
Turkey.
So it's sourdough bread.
Yeah, sourdough,
You
turkey,
gotta get the right
Swiss.
bread.
Yeah, turkey and Swiss, and then lettuce, pickled onions, pickles. You like spicy brown mustard on
Yeah.
yours
I
too.
do.
But then different people do. Yeah, some people
Right,
want
so
them.
do you know all of them? You know all
I
of
have
the
to
orders?
ask each time.
Well, she's not
right?
making them all either. Like we got.
I'm in there
our
with
teenagers
Teresa and
they're
Imelda. So
helping
my
out.
14-year-old and
Yeah.
12-year-old daughters are in there, and it's like a system. Like
Yeah.
one is putting the meat and cheese on, the other one's building the
It's assembly line.
toppings on top, and then we're grilling. So
Henry
it's like
Ford
3 stations.
would be proud. It's
Yeah.
like this assembly line that
3
spits out.
stations.
Yeah.
So, and then another daughter is walking into the living room going, what toppings would you like? What toppings would you
It's
like?
awesome.
So that,
And I'm lazily sitting there watching the Panthers almost beat
The Eagles.
the
yeah,
Eagles.
for like the third time,
Yeah.
they've almost,
Yeah.
we've been having a terrible, terrible last couple of years. And all of
Yeah.
a sudden it's like,
Had 3
Panthers team is back.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's fun to watch when they can almost win,
So during halftime, though, this was kind of like the perfect day, right? So we're sitting around. We got a friend, my college kid brought a friend over. Got a grown son who's over. We're still missing 2 of the kids. They're off doing other things. But then we go outside behind my barn, and we throw clay, and we shoot clay with our 12 gauge, 20 gauge. And so we love doing that. And so we did that for, we probably shot 200 rounds, maybe at least 200 rounds between all of us. But I got her out there. She went shooting.
it had been a couple of years. I
Yeah.
hadn't been out. Yeah.
So she was shooting. I
did.
got a picture. I got pictures. We can post it.
We do not have to
Yeah,
post
we
that.
can post it.
We do not need to post that.
And
But
then
not pregnant this time. So
Not
another
pregnant.
one
we do have pictures of
that-
her clay shooting pregnant with like 8 months pregnant. It's
Yeah.
awesome. This huge belly with a big barrel over it. It's awesome.
To be clear, I got clearance from my OB for that. So
Tell him about that appointment. You asked him 3 weird questions, and it was like,
we owned horses at the time. So I was like, I've got some things like, can I go and, just walk the horses while I'm pregnant? Okay. And I won't say what his answer was, but he gave me an answer to that one. And then, and I won't say it because we've already said his name.
on the horses.
On the horses. Yeah, riding the
Well, the way you
horses.
said it made it sound like, can you like lead line
No,
the
no,
horse?
no.
Can you ride a horse?
Can I ride a horse? Can I ride a horse? But
Like-
slowly ride a horse. Okay, slowly ride a horse.
I don't speak horse. Thank you for translating.
Yeah. Can I slowly ride a horse? Is it okay if I clay shoot? And what about, I think creatine was the question at the time.
creatine.
How do you feel about creatine powder?
Yeah, pumping iron.
Yeah. So, anyway, it was an interesting cut. And he's like just shaking his head because this is like, I don't know, baby number 9, 10, something like that. And I'm like, well, we've kind of gone through all the basics. And every time you're like, do you have any questions? I'm like, no. And I just come with these 3 questions. And he thought it was pretty funny.
It's awesome.
So,
Okay, here's a mom
that's
of all
pretty
these
funny.
kids, and she wants to go shoot guns, ride horses, and pump iron. And it's like, oh man, that's my woman right there. Sign me up over and over again. That's awesome.
It was an interesting appointment.
So this gets to the practicality of physically having 16 kids.
Right. Yeah. So I was in a pretty bad, physical shape after my 6th baby. Wow. Hello. And so after baby number 6, my back was just killing me from like month number 5 on. And I had put on a ton of weight and I was like gaining fluid and I just was very unhealthy. And as a result, I was very disconnected from my family because it was like I just felt like I had to take all these breaks and put my feet up and
Naps.
go to bed early, take a nap every day. And then my back, when I was up and moving and running around behind these babies, like I was really a little grumpy because my back was hurting me, a lot. And my feet were hurting me and I was swollen. And I just thought, after that baby was born, I thought, I can't do this to my family again. Like, I can't go through another pregnancy like that and not be present for the kids that I've already been blessed with. Like, I just felt very checked out because mentally it was hard for me to plug through that, the physical ailments that came along with that pregnancy. So I thought, I have to do something different. And so I really got onto nutrition, eating well, exercising every day. 5 to 6 times a week. I exercise all throughout pregnancy until the baby's born. Because whatever you're doing before you're pregnant, you can continue doing while you're pregnant. So I took that opportunity in between, pregnancies to really get on a routine and start doing stuff. And night and day, it was like I just felt so much better during that 7th pregnancy. And I thought, I'm never going back. Like, I'm not going back to that, because I was able to really enjoy my family still, and they were able to enjoy me. And my other kids weren't looking at me. I didn't want also, I had my oldest daughter at the time. I'm thinking, this is what she's looking at, thinking this is what it means to be pregnant. Like, it's this miserable experience. And it doesn't have to be. Now, I mean, all the normal things still happen to me. Like, I am nauseous in the first trimester, and I take some vitamin supplements, and I still work out, and I throw up while I'm working out. And I just kind of plug through and do the best that I can in the state that I'm at to keep going, with that. And I'm still, uncomfortable at the end of pregnancy, like everybody is. But there's a nice honeymoon period in between for me. I call it the second trimester, the honeymoon period, where it's like, oh, I'm, pregnant and happy and not nauseous, but not so big that I'm, that I'm needing to take breaks and rest, very often. But I started to prioritize those things, not just for myself, but also for my family, so that I could really be available to them in the way that they need me to be. So
was it simply like you stopped taking naps and you started working out and stuff? Like, that's like around number 5 or 6. Whenever you started this, you started P90X.
Right.
You spent more time with Tony Horton than me.
Yeah.
And you said, basically, I'm not taking naps anymore to rejuvenate. I'm working out. That was a big part of it, is the naps stopped.
Well, I think, yeah. I would work out in the morning time, like not when I would normally have napped, but I no longer needed the nap. And part of that was the exercise, and a big part of that was the nutrition. Making sure that I was putting the foods into my body that were really going to feed me and give me the sustained energy that I needed throughout the day. So yeah, from a practical standpoint, that's been a big one for me with having all of these back-to-back kids. And then also starting to work out pretty soon after the baby's born, 2 weeks postpartum, gently, but doing things, taking care of pelvic floor exercises, making sure that my body is ready to hold another baby and go through that whole experience again. Because
these are things that women talk to you about, I'm guessing, a lot, or ask.
Yeah, I've sent a lot of people to the same. After I can't remember which baby, but I saw a core retraining specialist because I wanted to make sure that I was staying strong in my core. And she really helped me. I got some exercises I learned from her. And then after every single pregnancy, I do the exact same exercises that she gave me to do at that point. And it's really kept me in a good physical shape where I am able to still, carry these babies, not only to full term, but carry them and be joyful and enjoy the experience. So.
Yeah. So this is what you were talking about before, about reevaluating kind of where you are before you move forward with having another baby, right? This is part of that process.
Right.
And this is the time where it kind of maybe got to a tipping point, you're saying?
Got to a tipping point because I knew that my family is, my kids are missing the energetic mother that they deserve, during the day. And I have to do something to change that. And I wasn't sure if what I was doing was going to, really have as big of an impact, and maybe for some people it doesn't, but I knew that I had to try to do something to change that, so that the experience of having a pregnant mother and then bringing a newborn home, because it's the other thing I feel much better postpartum too, was different for my kids at home, so that they could see it for the joyful experience that it is, and that it wasn't just a drag on my family, like mom's having another baby, Mm-hmm. I didn't want my kids to ever see that or think that way about having another sibling come,
So I guess my question would be, what piece of advice or pieces of advice do you give to moms who are maybe struggling in that area?
And you've had moms call you and say, hey, can you meet for coffee? And then they unload on you saying, I'm fat, out of shape, exhausted. How do you do it? I mean,
Right.
basically that's what they've said.
Right. So I have had that conversation several times. And my advice is to prioritize nutrition and your own physical health, because you are being asked to do like a very physically taxing thing, in carrying a baby to full term, from the beginning, when you're sick, to the end when you're huge. It's a physically taxing experience. So you have to make sure that you walk into that as prepared as you can be. You can't, professional athletes can't just walk out on the field and just start playing. They got to train in advance. So it's training my body in the way that educating myself first on nutrition, and also physical activity specifically for, the things that I'm doing, carrying a baby being one of those. But
You track calories.
I do track calories too.
MyFitnessPal.
Yeah, so I've used a calorie tracker for years, and there's times like after baby when I may be trying to lose a little bit of weight, and I get a little bit less calories. There's times when I'm just maintaining my weight, and so I get a lot more calories. But I am cognizant about not only what I eat, but also how much I eat, so that I can kind of stay healthy.
The quantities, the portion control is what's killing most people in this country. I mean, they just don't have any concept of how many calories they're consuming. And when you start tracking it, and we now use MyFitnessPal, but before it was My Daily Plate and other apps.
Lose It, and I've used a lot of apps over the years.
But when you start tracking, moms and dads would be embarrassed how many calories they consume and how many calories let their kids consume.
Yeah. So, because it's not just about what you eat, but it is about how much you eat. But I will say, I can eat anything that I want to eat. Luckily I don't have dietary restrictions. I just have to be cognizant of, the macronutrients, my fats, my proteins, my carbohydrates, what's going into my overall day. So I want to have pizza, I can have pizza, but I might need to have, something that's got a lot of protein for dinner and not as many carbs, make sure that I'm kind of staying in balance so that I'm fueling my body properly.
It takes effort.
It takes effort. It does, but
you have to measure.
But once you've done it for a while, it becomes second nature, and it's not as hard, So like anything,
Yeah, but I think families, especially families that are larger, they and I mean in the amount of people, I don't mean in the sense of
Physically?
Size.
The sum total weight of the family.
Right.
No, but bigger families, I can't say it. Families with lots of people in them, they need to process the fact that that they're really busy, they're worn out, they might be struggling financially, and so they just buy cheap, prepackaged garbage food, and it's easier to make, it's quicker to make, and that's what they stuff down their kids' throats, and that's what they pig out on, and it's a serious problem, and so their health takes a serious toll. And just because you are religious and go to a nice church service on the weekends and pray together as a family doesn't mean that you're immune from gluttony and sloth. And so I think that those sins are really plaguing modern families. And I think the more kids you have, it's easier to slip into that, because you just kind of get a little lazy, and you're trying to survive every day. And so it's hey, pasta, hey, takeout pizza, hey, cereal for breakfast. And then if you actually were tracking those calories, you'd be amazed how much sugar, how many hundreds of pounds of sugar your family consumed in the last 12 months. And it's kind of amazing.
But there's lots of books out there on eating healthy on a budget and how to really get started, in that way. It's been important for me in order to feel well during my pregnancy, and in order for my kids to experience each pregnancy and each new baby from a positive light instead of from a negative one.
And then what about you mentioned the family meals, that these are pretty consistent in your house? Yeah,
we do pretty consistent. I mean, it's never, No, it's not never. It's unusual that everybody is there because we do have a married daughter that lives out of town. We got a married son, and he and his wife, they come over once a week, but we don't always know when that's going to be. It's just like, hey, can we come over tonight? Like, sure, because they live, close by. But for the kids who live in our home, it's pretty consistent. So it's not always great, gourmet meals, but it is like sometimes it's just grilled chicken on a salad with some dressing on top and, and a cup of soup, and but it's still time together. So.
You got picky eaters?
That's funny. Didn't yesterday Paul or somebody try to claim he wasn't a picky eater?
Yes,
This is kind of a
so
funny
here's the
way.
thing. Since I started, really becoming more aware of nutrition, my younger kids, they eat it, like they'll eat a kale salad like it's nothing, like they'll ask for it, because this is their experience of like what normal food is. And we don't eat a lot of fast food in our home. It used to be that we would eat more fast food because we were running the circuit of kids on sports teams and always gone, always out. And it was what was, that was quick and hot and available. But my son, Paul, my 15-year-old, he's the last one. He's actually the one that I had the really difficult pregnancy with. And I thought, I'm not doing this again. But he is he is probably my pickiest eater. And everyone under him is pretty good. The other ones were kind of the older ones were mediocre. But Paul, so he says to me, I said, you're too picky. And he's like, I'm not picky, because we're making paninis, right?
This was
And
yesterday.
he just wants turkey and cheese on his panini. And I'm like, you're such a picky eater. He goes, no, I don't require all of these extra toppings on my panini. So I'm the least picky person here. I'm like, but everyone else in this room would eat your panini and you wouldn't touch theirs. That's what makes you picky.
Right.
But I thought, okay, he's looked at this from a slightly different angle and he sort of has an argument there, like.
The least picky because he wants the least amount of things.
Because he wants
on
the
it,
least number of things on
which
it.
is the only one who's doing that, which by definition is picky.
Right. It's a good try.
But
Yeah.
Sounds
Yeah,
like-
it was a valiant effort.
Right.
So.
But no, how many times have I heard her say over the years, I'm not a short order cook. I'm not a short order cook. Eat what we gave you.
Yeah.
You can't let these kids be spoiled.
Yeah, the paninis are a fun thing. Everybody does their own toppings, but most meals in our home, you don't like capers on chicken piccata? I'm sorry. Like, you have two choices. Eat them or eat around them, but it's going on your plate,
Right.
So.
Yeah, we're not taking a whole bunch of orders for kids. And it's not just out of like simplicity's sake. I'm not raising spoiled brats. Damn it.
Okay, for
I'm not
me, it's
gonna
out of simplicity state.
I don't want principle.
reality.
Which is one of those, like, if I could do it, I would probably be drawn to do it. But at a certain point, it became unmanageable. Like, no, I can't do this times 7 kids with that, So for me, it was one of those things that, yeah.
I'd probably make the kids eat something they don't want just on purpose.
And you do.
Yeah.
And the kids hate when I'm gone during mealtime because they're like,
I don't feed
please.
them stuff.
They're like, what's for lunch? Can you get something for lunch before you go? I'm like, no, do you understand? Like, Dad gave us PB&J on a quesadilla for lunch the last
wrong
time
with
he
that?
was here.
What's
He's
wrong
like,
with
it's
that?
bread,
It's
it's
bread.
peanut butter, it's
Bread.
jelly. I'm like, I'm sorry. I am out the door now. So I'm not
I
going to
actually
set
like
this up
it.
for
I mean,
you.
I like
I have to try
a
that.
wrap. And who doesn't like peanut butter and jelly? We didn't have regular bread.
Right?
Yeah.
Stick it on the.
I get it.
on.
It's not that offensive. I think.
No, but I had my kids
but-
one time. We didn't have any bread. We had hot dog buns, so I put peanut butter jelly and hot dog buns,
Yeah, I
and they
bet.
thought I was like from another planet. I'm like, what? It's bread.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I hate. I
There's
hate
a
when the
theme
kids.
here. If I leave, it's peanut butter and jelly
Uh-huh.
on something. Like, we're not really sure what. But
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, why not?
it is great.
Right.
So that's an interesting look into like the day of kind of stuff. Like, what about a typical day? I know you mentioned yesterday was kind of like an idyllic day.
Yeah, it was kind of an idyllic day. Oh, and we actually didn't finish the story. So after the clay shooting,
yeah.
then we go back in and watch the very end of the Panther game,
Right,
and
and
we're
they
all
choked.
screaming at the TV. But then after that, we loaded everybody up and we went to McCaddenville, which for those people who aren't local, it's called Christmastown nationwide.
Mhm.
And like every house in this neighborhood is decked out with incredible.
Decked out to the max.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's
So we'd park and walk. We walked our whole family
So
around.
even that, here's the thing. It's Advent. Like, we're really not supposed to be celebrating Christmas,
yeah,
right?
we're suckers.
But it was a Sunday, which is a feast day, always a feast day, right? And they closed down day after Christmas.
Right.
It's shut down. So
Gotcha.
you go when you can go, and that's what we,
yeah,
chose to do
Advent's
yesterday.
penitential season,
So it is. Yeah.
but still, we still have Christmas fun.
But for people doing math in their heads and they say you're parents of 16 kids, how do you go in the car? They might not understand the older kids
Drive.
out of the house. And so
Yeah.
how many vehicles did you have going?
Just 2 yesterday.
We only had we had 3.
Oh.
Peter, Jude, and then my van.
You're right.
So
Yeah.
we had 3 cars. But because we had our college kid and his friend were home and they were going back to a different location, we could have made it into. But we had 3 cars going
Gotcha.
yesterday.
Yeah.
That's part of the practicality, though,
Right.
right?
Yeah, we never have one
Right.
car anymore
Right.
to anywhere.
Not if we're
Not if we're as a family, church or anything. We always
even
have
just
two.
the kids that still live at home. Even if we're all together, we're not in
Yeah.
one car. So
That's 12-passenger van.
yeah.
And that's been for several years now, I'm guessing, something like that.
Yes.
We'll have a second car.
Right. Having
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. So my twins, number 11 and 12, were born when my oldest was, and in South Carolina, you can get your license at 15 and a half. It's provisional, but you can get it. And that pregnancy was a difficult, like nausea, just a difficult pregnancy for me. But I knew I got to have this kid driving like independently by the time these twins are born. And he was going to turn 15 and a half just before they were born if he got his driving hours in. So I'm like in this car with this 15-year-old kid, and I just drove around and I just had a barf bucket, but I had him drive everywhere that we went so that he, really got the practice in so that he could start driving. And so from that point, when the twins were born, we were always in 2 cars, whenever we all went somewhere, which as they get older it's rare that you're all going, to one place except for Mass on Sunday, but other than that, they're in different events.
So as the mom of 16 kids, what is a typical day? If there is as close to a typical day as you can give us, like how does your day go?
Okay.
Start at when you wake up and take us all the way through till you wake up again.
Okay. So I wake up and 2 cups of coffee right out of the gate. That's how
Which I
start
usually
my
make
day.
for her.
Yeah.
I'm the barista.
At least the first one. Yeah. We get the 2 cups of coffee, up and going, and a little bit of snack for me, like some applesauce, a little bit of banana, go do a workout, come back, get ready for the day, dressed, just out of my workout clothes into my regular day clothes, and get the kids going on their various, actually a lot of times I get some kids going on schoolwork, make sure that they're up. And actually I need to start over because there's a lot more that goes into the morning.
Yes, there is. You
Yeah.
skipped so much.
I'm like,
Just do it again.
this is okay. So wake up, 2 cups of coffee. That part stays the
Is
same.
there a typical time?
I had 6:30ish is usually when my day starting has been all over the place. Like I've been a 5 a.m. riser before. And for me, it depends on, and sometimes like on the weekend, I could even sleep as late as, 7:30. But it depends on if I have a baby that's keeping me up at night. When I don't, I like to get up early. I am an early morning person, but when I've got a baby that I'm waking up with a couple times at night, I need the extra hour and a half in the morning.
So when she gets up at 6:30, she was probably up at 4:30 nursing the baby, and then she takes a little nap and then gets back up at 6:30.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not
That's
sleeping.
different
So
than my
that's
waking
that.
up at 6:30.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So right now it's 6:30, 2 cups of coffee. And then I usually do something simple. I call it like first breakfast at our house. Maybe make some yogurt parfaits for the kids so that when they get up, they can, eat breakfast. And I do get them up and get them going. Get everybody up downstairs.
I hate it when people sleep in.
Yeah, it's on.
I hate it.
It's ready for you. It's on the countertop. Eat it. Get upstairs, get your beds made and your rooms picked up, and start your schoolwork. For the older kids. And then I have a little snack at that point also. And
So you've worked out by 8 o'clock.
get
You're
ready.
done.
Yeah. Go get ready, do my workout, come back to the house, get ready for the rest of my day. And then it's just cycling through, making sure that kids are on the different assignments that they have for the week. For school, for the older kids, it's more of a management system because they've got teachers outside of the house. For the younger kids, it's very much a grunt work system. We have another
like breakfast, usually more protein rich something, 9:00 in the morning. And that's their snack. It's, for me, more of my full breakfast. And I work with the little kids on their school assignments and try to like manage the toddlers, not destroying the house, in between. But I mean, often they do, and that's okay.
So how did that happen while you were working out? I
What
guess is my
happened?
question, the toddlers part.
The toddlers part, yeah. So they are up and they're eating their breakfast, and the older kids are up and they're getting their beds made, rooms picked up, and starting their assignments. And then one of the older kids will be assigned to, until I get back, you're in charge. And by get back, I mean, I just walk over to the detached garage, work out in the garage, and walk back to the main house. I'm there. I'm just, walking across the driveway. So,
But she won't work out with me.
no.
I can't get her to work out with me.
Well, I mean, my entire day is with other people. It's spent with other people. Like every minute of my day is spent, every minute of my evening is spent. I'm woken up at night and spending time with other people. This is the only 30 to 45 minutes that I'm going to get by myself in a 24-hour period.
Yeah.
And I'm selfish about it. I want it for myself, so.
I think it'd be cool, but it's not happening.
Yeah, I like having that time to myself.
And when she's doing P90X3 and doing like the punches and kicks for MMX.
Everybody makes fun of me.
That's awesome.
I mean,
it's so
everybody
funny.
makes fun of
Especially
me.
when she's got a big eight-month belly. She's this huge belly and she's doing side kicks and uppercuts. It's awesome.
Look.
If I could film it, I'm going to sneak it like through the window.
We'll put it all over social
YouTube
media.
sensation.
Yeah.
It would be awesome.
She's going to love that.
It's it's embarrassing.
Sorry.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So yeah, we do that. And then there's a lot of schoolwork that happens in the morning time. Noon is lunch. Get the 2-year-old down for her nap. Baby is only 3 months old. She naps when she naps. She's awake when she's awake. She's always, kind of near me or with me. If I happen to be able to get her down for a really good nap, put the camera on her. And then I'm just more available, to my other kids while she's taking a good nap. And she does usually take a good morning nap. That's pretty solid. So that's good. 2-year-old naps at 12, eat lunch, clean up, finish whatever we need to do for school.
You kind of have 3 segments of chores with the kids. Like we try
breakfast,
to get
lunch, and dinner. Yeah, so I just have them get on their chores after breakfast, after lunch, after dinner. And
otherwise it just piles up.
yeah, so and that just looks like, doing the dishes, loading the dishwasher, cleaning off the countertops, picking up the floors if there's a big mess on the floor, like if we happen to have something, where the little kids dropped a lot of, sweep it up, and pick up the living room because we've usually had a lot of people in there doing various things and they leave their school book or they leave, so everybody pick up the living room, just kind of reset at least the downstairs of our house. After breakfast, after lunch, and after dinner every day.
Is that a mental thing as much as a physical thing for you guys that, okay, things are back in manageable or back in
so
order?
For me,
a
it
little
is. For him, he can work no problem through the chaos, which has actually been a huge blessing for me as the mom, because if he walks in at the door at night and the house is in total disarray, it's like he doesn't even notice it.
Okay.
So I don't have pressure on me to like get this done before dad gets home.
Right, you don't have that pressure.
Yeah, I don't have that pressure. Yeah, that's been a big blessing. But for me, I have a really hard time focusing on the things that I should be focusing on when I have these external, messes around me. Like, because I'm looking at the countertop and I'm like, there's like 50 dishes on the countertop and I can't, and I know that that's something that's going to have to be done. And it just stays on my mental to-do list and really taxes me staying on that list versus if we just get it off, I'm freed from that off of my mental to-do list is where I need it the most free. It's beyond just seeing it. I just need to not think about it anymore. Thinking about things when you don't want to, definition of stress, right? So when I'm thinking about those dishes, I really don't want to be thinking about the dishes. And the only way for me to get rid of thinking about the dishes, because I'm not a holier person who can just compartmentalize that, is to just get the dishes done and move along. So, so the chores happen. Afternoon, we're usually done with schoolwork by 2:00. And then we spend time playing fun, like having fun. I spend time watching the kids. I sit on my front porch a lot as they ride their bikes and their scooters and play in the leaves and play front yard baseball. And, my kids spend a lot of time outside. So 2:00 and on, unless it's really cold, we're usually outside together. And I'm in and out. My girls and I like to have tea together in the afternoon. So we make tea.
They got these nice little tea sets.
Yeah.
Like really nice things.
It's my grandmother's teacup collection. So, they're antiques, but they don't do a lot of good on the shelf. Like, but it does a lot of good. Like my girls have formed those memories now of having,
tea time.
Tea time. We have afternoon tea time, and the boys really want in on the tea time, especially if we happen to have sugar cubes available for the tea, So sometimes
it's a cute little habit.
Sometimes we let them edge in, and
I think we picked it up. She probably picked it up from Downton Abbey.
Right.
No, you know who I picked it up from? Kate Bach.
Really?
Yeah, homeschool mom from the area that we used to live in, and she does a lot for the homeschool community down there. But she always made time for tea, and she mentioned that once, and it was kind of like in the back of my mind. I didn't do anything about it, and then one day I was like, why don't I do that? Because I love that. I love that she does that, and why don't I just try it? And I did, and it was so fruitful, with the girls and the boys too. They can kind of ruin it sometimes because it goes downhill fast with the boys.
It sounds like just tea.
Yeah.
But it's breaking up the day. The kids the little girls, like they boil the water, they get the tray set up, they get everything. It's an event.
It's an event.
The ritual.
It's a ritual and it's powerful. I mean, I think it doesn't have to be tea, but like families need rituals.
Yeah. And it's a pause in the middle of the day, regardless of what else is going on. And we spend a little bit of time like talking over tea, which is nice. Even the little like 2-year-old, they get ice cubes in theirs, and theirs is cooled down before, they get their cup, but they still get to use the big girl teacups and sit around, and it does breed a lot of conversation, especially with the 12-year-old and 14-year-old right now. And it has for a couple of years.
If we had 100 activities outside the home, we couldn't do that. We still have a lot of activities. Sometimes I think too much, but this is one of the benefits of something like homeschooling.
Right. Is that, normally kids aren't home, at 2:00 in the afternoon to have that regular tea time. But since my kids happen to be, I take advantage of that. And it's one of the benefits is that we do get to do stuff like that. So,
and I would say probably 70% of the time when the weather's nice, if I'm driving up from work at 5 or 5:30, that she's still on the front porch. And then pretty much dinner starts right then. But when I pull up and I see the kids playing in the front yard and Ashley's sitting up there on the front porch with a number of the little kids who are hanging out, it's just really nice to pull up and see your family is gathered and they're sitting on the front porch and enjoying outside. They're not watching TV inside. And they're not slaves at the desk, still doing school. It's done and they've moved on. And so it's
moved on
nice.
To the real enjoyment part of our day.
It's fun.
Enjoying
It's really
each other's
nice
company.
to drive up and see that all the time.
Yeah.
It's one of the bad things about winter is you pull up, it's dark and they're inside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of
course, our kids played what they call dark tag or whatever.
Yeah. There's lots of,
They get
flashlight tag out there.
Yeah, it's sort of like
tag.
that. Well, that's just tag and it's in the dark. And they just go and they
I think
just.
there's like mummies in the graveyard. Like they've come up with a lot of different things that they like to do when it's dark. So, yeah.
So from tea time to where he was taking us there?
Yeah, there's a couple hours in there where we're at more than that. I mean, there's a lot of like getting up off the front porch to go in and manage this or do the, various different things. But then dinner, is usually getting started 5:30, or if it's something that requires a little more time, it's been started, but it may just be like, in the kitchen, like waiting for whatever, in the oven to cook, like it's put together, but it's getting ready to come out. So.
And typically, would you say you have 2 or 3 kids kind of in that process with you?
For
dinner?
Meal prep and stuff? Yes, I always grab a couple of extra hands. Usually one of the teenage boys, they don't particularly care to help with the meal prep stuff, but they will usually take the baby, and that way we're hands-free and, baby's taken care of. And then a couple of the girls and I will, and actually David, our 11-year-old son, like he's a helper in the kitchen.
He's a baker.
He's an independent baker. Yeah, he does. He does
How
a lot
David?
of the baking. He's 11.
He's 11, but even at 9, I think 2 years ago, he was making.
You give the kid a recipe, like for a baked good. He's not using stovetop, but he is putting stuff together, getting it ready to go in the oven. And he's incredible. Like he can follow a recipe. So.
Blackberry cobbler from our blackberries in our yard.
That's
in
the
our
other,
garden. Awesome. Like really good.
The nutritional component for us is we got a little more buy-in because we grow a lot of our fruits and vegetables. And so especially in the summertime, we've got an abundance. Even now, I think the last frost may have taken the last of my crop. I don't have a greenhouse yet, but we grow a lot.
But the
So-
garden has been a process too.
Oh yeah,
Right.
It's a big deal. for
Yeah,
our house.
it is. Yeah.
I guess what I'm saying, it's been an evolution in your family. You didn't start with a
We
garden.
didn't start with a garden when we only had little kids. We've had a garden for maybe 6 years now, and done that pretty regularly. That's kind of my happy place. I enjoy being in the garden and working in the garden.
It's fairly substantial.
It is. Yeah. We get a lot of our lunches at home come, whether it's, right now it would be like kale and lettuce. And we have a cooler weather crop out there right now. But in the summer, there's a lot of zucchini and spaghetti squash and tomatoes. And so we'll have tomato and mozzarella salad with our lunch, or we'll have, a spiralized zucchini and make it into a pasta for our lunch. And so there's a little more buy-in to eating healthy too, because it's coming out of our garden. And especially when they're younger, they think that that's cool. And that kind of forms those good eating habits. So when they're older and it's not cool anymore, it's still what they're used to.
Right.
So, yeah.
We're about time. We got to go to mass at 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
It's holy day of obligation today. Immaculate Conception.
So quickly, can you get me to the death hour from dinner?
Okay.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, it is the death hour. After dinner is everybody's got to do their chores,
Oh.
Pick up evening chores.
I
Which,
hate it.
yeah. And then also, right now I'm dealing with fussy newborn time because she's pretty fussy after dinner, and then trying to get her down for the night. But having people do their chores and then having people redo their chores when they're not done the right way the first time. Get pajamas on. Little kids go to bed. Older kids stay up. They might watch something with Connor. They might play a board game together and spend time in that way. I usually have the baby back in my room trying to get her, just in a quiet area to get her down for the night. And she's usually, it takes a while. It takes a good couple hours, like maybe 9:30 is when she's down for the first stint, and then up a couple times a night, maybe twice.
But that's a nice
during the
time for
night.
me to spend time with the older kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, she's out, but I'm in. It's quite
Yeah.
good.
And the kids kind of float in and out of the room while I'm like, I need it quiet in here, but try not to be too harsh about, okay, I'm going to visit with you for a while, but it's really, you got to go because I want to get the baby to bed. So
And then her evening or night stinks because the babies
it
wake up.
really doesn't stink. I sleep much better now than I used to. When I was a young mom, I wasn't very good at, doing the nighttime feeding thing, but I've gotten much better at it. I can go back to sleep really fast, and I don't wake up feeling exhausted like I used to. You get better at stuff, more experience you get. So it's one of the things I've gotten better at is learning how to sleep with a newborn. So yeah.
That's the 24 hours.
And then
right there,
wake up the next morning and start it again.
It is a full and complete 24 hours.
Yeah. But with lots of, periods for I feel like that afternoon tea time is kind of like a reset, little peaceful break in the middle of the day. So,
It's a joyful home. It's a joyful
Yeah.
24 hours with bumps and bruises, but it's good.
Impressive.
yeah.
That's a good place to end.
All right.
Okay.
You guys good with that?
Yeah.
Cool.